Case 1. Jason Derek Brown, 2004, USA. In the fall of 2004, Phoenix, Arizona was a city buzzing with desert heat and suburban calm. But beneath that calm, a man named Jason Derek Brown was living a double life, one that would soon make him one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives in America. Jason was not the typical criminal. He came from money, a wealthy Mormon family, well-educated, good-looking, confident, and charismatic. On the outside, he appeared successful, but behind the image was a man drowning in debt. He owed thousands in luxury expenses, his credit was collapsing, and his charm was the only thing keeping him afloat. To maintain his lifestyle, Jason started lying, scamming, and cheating people who trusted him. He bought expensive cars he couldn't afford, told friends he owned businesses that didn't exist, and traveled as if he were untouchable. He taught golf lessons, sold fake electronics, and bragged about his wealth, while his bank account was nearly empty. By November 2004, desperation had taken control of him. Jason had recently purchased a .45 caliber Glock handgun and practiced shooting it for hours at a desert range. Around that same time, he started asking strange questions about armored trucks, security routines, and how much cash they usually carried. On November 29, 2004, at around 10 a.m., an armored truck parked outside a movie theater in Phoenix to collect weekend deposits. The guard, Robert Keith Palomares, was doing his routine pickup when Jason Derek Brown appeared out of nowhere, riding a bicycle. He approached from behind, pulled out the handgun, and fired 5 rounds. Robert Palomares was hit multiple times and collapsed instantly. Jason grabbed the money bag, $56,000 in cash, threw it into a duffel bag, jumped on his bike, and vanished. The attack lasted less than a minute. Witnesses saw him flee down an alley, but by the time police arrived, Jason was gone. His bike was later found dumped behind an apartment complex. The next day, his luxury BMW was discovered in a storage garage near his home inside. Police found ammunition, a bulletproof vest, and empty boxes of .45 caliber rounds. Fingerprints matched Jason Derek Brown. Within 48 hours, he became the prime suspect in the murder of the armored truck guard. But when police went to arrest him, Jason had already disappeared. He withdrew all remaining cash from his bank account, sold off his possessions, and vanished from Arizona like a ghost. In the days after the crime, his family told investigators Jason had visited them, acting calm, pretending everything was normal. His brother said Jason even asked for help cleaning out a storage unit, which later turned out to contain evidence from the robbery. When the FBI arrived, Jason was already gone. Over the next few months, sightings came in from all across the United States, Las Vegas, Portland, even as far as the East Coast. Each one turned out to be a dead end. The FBI believed Jason was moving constantly, blending in using fake IDs and credit cards. They learned that Jason was fluent in French and had lived in Paris for years as a missionary, meaning he could easily disappear overseas. Agents suspected he might have fled to Europe, but no credible trace ever surfaced. In 2007, the FBI placed him on their 10 most wanted list, alongside notorious terrorists and violent killers. But what made Jason's case so unusual was his personality. He wasn't a hardened criminal. He was an intelligent, charming man with no prior violent history. He looked like someone you'd trust instantly. People began calling him the pretty boy fugitive. To this day, Jason Derek Brown has never been found. His last confirmed trace was in Orange County, California, in 2005, where a witness claimed to have seen him riding a motorcycle near the beach. The sighting was never verified. The FBI believes he could be living quietly under a new identity, possibly even overseas, in plain sight. They've released multiple age-progressed photos showing what he might look like today, but none have led to his capture. Nearly 20 years later, the murder of Robert Palomares remains unsolved, and Jason Derek Brown remains one of America's most elusive fugitives, a man who went from luxury to murder, from millionaire to ghost. Jason's story is one of arrogance and greed, a man who ran from justice and vanished into thin air. But our next mystery is something entirely different. This one isn't about a criminal on the run. It's about a 5-year-old girl who simply walked away and never came back. Case 2, Yuki Onishi, 2005, Japan. It was a bright, sunny afternoon in Wakayama Prefecture, Japan, in 2005. Families were gathering for a local bamboo digging event, a yearly festival where parents and children search forest soil for edible bamboo shoots. Laughter filled the air. Children ran through the trees, and among them was 5-year-old Yuki Onishi. Yuki was described as cheerful, curious, and always full of energy. Her parents had brought her along to spend the day with friends and relatives. Around 11 a.m., Yuki's mother turned to check on her daughter, who was digging near a small hill. She looked away for just a moment, and when she turned back, Yuki was gone. At first, no one panicked. The area was open, the trees thin, and many families were nearby. They assumed she'd wandered a few meters away, maybe chasing a butterfly or exploring the forest edge. But minutes turned to hours, and there was still no sign of her. By the afternoon, more than 100 volunteers joined the search. Yuki's name echoed through the forest as rescuers combed through every inch of the area. The bamboo field was surrounded by dense forest, steep slopes and narrow trails that led to a nearby road. It should have been impossible for a small child to get far. But as night fell, the search team realized something chilling. Yuki hadn't just wandered off. She had vanished completely. Over the next few days, the search expanded to hundreds of people, police officers, rescue dogs, helicopters, and local volunteers. They checked streams, abandoned buildings, and nearby houses. Divers searched a small pond, but not a single clue was found. Search dogs followed Yuki's scent for about 150 meters down a forest path, and then it stopped abruptly, as if she had vanished into thin air. Investigators began to suspect abduction. Several witnesses recalled seeing a man in the area earlier that morning, tall, wearing a backpack, and walking alone through the forest. He didn't appear to be the part of the festival group. Police circulated sketches, but no one came forward to identify him. Weeks passed. The case dominated Japanese media, with television crews showing the heartbreaking image of Yuki's parents standing in the forest, calling her name. But nothing came. Months later, police revisited every possible lead, checking known offenders, travelers, and even foreign workers in the region. Still, no answers. Some locals suggested something supernatural, that the forest was cursed, or that spirits had taken her. It might sound irrational, but for many in Japan, these forests carry deep mythological meaning. Disappearances there are treated with a haunting kind of respect. Years later, an investigator who worked on the case admitted something that still haunts him. He said, "We found footprints leading one way, but none returning. It was like she just walked off the earth. No remains, no objects, No confirmed sightings, nothing. Nearly 20 years later, Yuki Onishi's disappearance remains one of Japan's most haunting unsolved cases. Her parents still live in the same town, keeping her photo near the window just in case she somehow finds her way home. A man who escaped justice. A child who vanished in daylight. And now, we move to a case that reveals how one city became the hunting ground for a killer whose face may have been seen, but never identified. Case 3. The Frankfurt Slasher, 1985-1990 Philadelphia, USA. Between 1985 and 1990, the city of Philadelphia was haunted by fear, not of crime in general, but of one particular name whispered among locals and police alike. They called him the Frankfurt Slasher. The killings began quietly, the kind of crimes that rarely made national headlines at first. The first victim was John Durkin, a 29-year-old woman whose body was discovered in a bar bathroom in 1985. She'd been stabbed repeatedly, and the brutality of the attack shocked even veteran detectives. At first, authorities thought it might have been an isolated act of rage, until it happened again and again. By 1989, the pattern was clear. All of the victims were women, most of them sex workers or women living on the margins of society. They were found near the Frankfurt Avenue area in alleyways, vacant lots, and abandoned buildings. All were stabbed repeatedly, the same violent frenzy each time. Panic began to spread through the community. Women refused to go out alone at night, and bars started closing earlier. Police knew they were dealing with a serial killer, but unlike most serial cases, there were no fingerprints, no DNA, and no witnesses. Over the years, 8 women would be connected to the Frankfurt Slasher. Each case had similar wounds, deep stabs to the chest and neck, signs of rage rather than control. In 1990, a suspect finally emerged, Leonard Christopher, a quiet, soft-spoken man who worked at a local fish market near one of the crime scenes. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, and everyone who knew him said he was kind and respectful. But police, desperate for answers, focused on him after the murder of Michelle Daner, one of the victims. Leonard was charged and eventually convicted, despite there being no physical evidence tying him to any of the murders. He was sentenced to life in prison. For a brief moment, the city breathed easier. The media claimed the slasher had been caught. But the truth didn't stay buried for long. Soon after Leonard's conviction, another body was discovered, a woman killed in the exact same way, in the same neighborhood, and Leonard Christopher was already behind bars. The new murder shattered the case completely. Police now faced a horrifying possibility. They had locked away an innocent man, and the real Frankfurt Slasher was still out there. Rumors began to circulate among officers and residents. Some believed there were 2 killers, possibly working independently, but using the same methods. Others thought the real murderer may have been someone who frequented the same bars and neighborhoods, blending in, unnoticed, until it was too late. Over time, the case went cold. DNA testing wasn't as advanced back then, and many of samples had degraded. When investigators revisited the case decades later with new technology, they found that the evidence was too contaminated to confirm anything. Leonard Christopher died in prison in 2010, still proclaiming his innocence. To this day, no one knows who the Frankfurt Slasher truly was, or how many victims there might have been. In 2023, a man claimed online that his uncle had confessed on his deathbed to killing women in Philadelphia back in the 80s. Police investigated the statement, but nothing came of it. And so, the slasher remains a ghost, a faceless monster who may have stopped killing, or may still be walking free, decades later, hidden in the crowd like he always was. From a faceless killer in the shadows of modern Philadelphia, we now travel back in time, thousands of years before our cities existed, to a place where an entire civilization vanished, leaving behind one terrifying truth carved in bone. Case 4. The Herxheim Cannibal Site, 5304,950 BC, Germany. Long before recorded history, in what is now southwestern Germany, archaeologists discovered something that changed everything we thought we knew about ancient Europe. The place was called Herxheim, a small Neolithic settlement dating back more than 7,000 years. At first, researchers believed they had uncovered a simple prehistoric village, but what they found beneath the soil wasn't the story of life. It was a story of death. Hundreds of human bones were scattered across the site, men, women, and children. Their remains were not buried. They were broken, smashed, and burned. The more archaeologists uncovered, the more horrifying the picture became. The bones showed clear signs of defleshing cut marks made by stone tools, fractures caused by deliberate blows. The skulls were cracked open, long bones split in half, and in some cases, the marrow had been scraped out. In total, over 1,000 individuals were found at Herxheim, and nearly all showed the same marks. This was not the result of war or accident. It was systematic. The question was, why? At first, experts thought it might have been ritual sacrifice, perhaps an ancient tribe killing their enemies as part of a belief system, but evidence soon contradicted that idea. The victims weren't outsiders. They came from hundreds of miles away, from what is now France, the Czech Republic, and even Poland. They had been brought there intentionally. Carbon dating and isotope analysis revealed something even stranger. The killings happened over a period of several hundred years, meaning generation after generation, people kept coming to Herxheim to die. One theory suggested mass cannibalism, that this was a site where humans consumed other humans as part of a ritual to appease gods, or perhaps out of desperation during famine. Another theory proposed that Herxheim was a death cult, a civilization that believed the world was ending and performed human sacrifices on a massive scale. No one can say for sure, but the evidence is undeniable. Skull fragments with clean-cut marks, bones bearing the unmistakable signs of flesh being stripped, and piles of remains deliberately arranged in circles. For decades, the Herxheim discovery has divided scientists. Some insist it was purely ritualistic, that the people believed they were offering themselves to divine forces. Others believe it was survival cannibalism, one of the earliest recorded acts of organized human horror. The site is still being studied, and every excavation brings more questions than answers. No written language existed at the time, no records of who these people were or why they came to Herxheim. Only the bones remain silent, but screaming their story through history. Today, the Herxheim cannibal site stands as one of the darkest archaeological discoveries ever made. A place that forces us to confront a chilling reality that human cruelty and human ritual are far older than civilization itself. From fugitives and killers to children who vanished and civilizations lost to madness, these stories remind us that mystery has no boundaries. It exists in the streets we walk and in the soil beneath our feet. The iceberg only gets deeper